So another trend picking up from the Futurecast Forum is the silver tsunami and the great wealth transfer. The numbers are staggering: $90 trillion in inheritance and wealth preservation tactics through all kinds of tax deferral strategies. How do you feel that's going to play out in the Seattle-Bellevue metro area over the next 10 years? Like, what kind of shifts will we see in housing as a result?
Oh, it's going to be huge. The numbers are astronomical. If you think about it here, again, we have a lot of very, very wealthy people.
Yes.
Well, a lot of very, very large companies. And so I look at that transfer of wealth that we're going to see, we know is going to happen between older, even to maybe us, and generations that are younger. And I think that we will see a lot of that occur possibly earlier than you might think. And why do I say that? Again, when we start trying to offset taxes, how do you try adjustments you can make yourself in order to try and preserve that wealth, not for yourself, but for your children, for example, whether it's going to become in the form of helping for down payments on a home, maybe buying a home.
Yes.
And so I think that we will continue to see that as much as we are living longer. And so we're not going to see it happen overnight, but we are in a very wealthy market. And as Peter always said, Washington State is a great place to live in. Just don't die here,
right?
Because of taxes. So more you can actually remove yourself from the worry of that by trying to plan for it and make some of those transfers earlier. Then I think that's going to be beneficial, not just to the overall economy, but certainly in the housing part of our very wealthy region.
Yeah. Well, and talk to your accountant and to your wealth manager, but in essence now with some of these government policies landed, and you can certainly take advantage of making warm gifts to your children that might help them get into home ownership. And also, as the aging demographics are looking at a 6-bedroom home on, a half-acre lot with a lot of maintenance, and you're in your 70s or 80s, the reality is the utility of a home like that might not be your forever situation. And so there will be a downsizing likely. You said also for estate tax purposes in the state of Washington, probably a trend to pick up another home, maybe in Arizona or in Florida. These are the trends that are going to be affecting our market, and also recycling housing for the next families to jump into that 6-bedroom home.
Oh, very much so. And again, we think about those demographic shifts. You mentioned Arizona or Florida. Well, we've seen that migration pattern actually come from the south to the north. I'm not sure if you noticed or not, the weather's kind of getting a bit better up here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
And so that is fascinating unto itself, because everyone said, oh, Seattle, it rains all the time. Maybe that was a couple of decades ago, not anymore. So you're also seeing money come out of those southern states into our region.
Right.
And they're bringing their money with them. So yes, we will see a downsizing, but don't necessarily believe that the old days, sell your house in Bellevue, buy a house in Yuma, Arizona, is going to continue. Yes, we will see some of that happening, but climate is starting to have an impact, as well as not just taxes, but also you think about insurance and home insurance,
right?
Especially in the Florida, California.
Yeah.
That is becoming part of that decision-making process. So ultimately, yes, of course, go and talk to your tax advisor or your accountant before making any of these decisions. But I certainly see that wealth transfer be more pronounced here in the Northwest than we'll likely see, let's say, the center part of the country.
Well, and that tremendous wealth that is being created here, not just in equity from their homes, that they're probably have no mortgage now anyways, and they're going to roll that into maybe a downsized home and a second home somewhere else. But it's also commercial portfolio as well. They have a lifestyle change. They don't want to be the landlord as long as they have been. They're looking at 1031 exchange strategies or 721 exchange strategies for capital gains tax deferral, but ultimately they're going to sell the strip mall, the motel, the apartment house, the multiple single-family homes that they've been renting out over the years, because they want to divest from being an active investor into more of a passive one and trying to, not pay tax along the way.
So that's huge, as you mentioned, especially on the single-family rental side. Everyone assumes that it's these huge corporations that bought everything up coming out of the financial crisis, they're to blame for the housing shortage. No, that's not the case at all. It is the mom and pop investor. In fact, these large corporations that have more than 100 units, they're almost a rounding error. They own less than 1% of single-family rentals. So it is the mom and pops, it is the people we're talking about, and they're the ones that are going to say, okay, I've done very well, now it's time to sell those on. So again, that is just more money coming in, and what do they do with it? Certainly 1031 exchanges, yeah, absolutely. Try and defer that huge amount of income, which I'm sure they've seen. But that's just another part of the bigger picture. You start talking about strip malls, certainly, or apartment buildings. Single-family rentals, that is going to be a huge player, I think, over the course of the next, well, probably a couple of decades.
So someone going through estate planning, they are going to have numerous types of transactions. I know our brokers are really well positioned for that, and we have some commercial agents as well that partner with them to help them with those other transactions that are not residential. And also, being interstate and international, if they do want to have a second home or multiple properties, maybe one in the south side of France, we're able to help them that way because it's really a lifestyle investment. They are in the sunset of their life and they're enjoying their wealth and they're traveling the world and they're living in multiple different locations, and there's a lot of transactions that are happening on this great wealth transfer.
Oh, absolutely. And again, this is not just a blip. This is something we're going to see, I would say, for at least 20, maybe 30 years. So it's not going away.
And you look at this demographic of the great generation and the baby boomers, I don't know that there's ever been decade after decade growth in these portfolios and the wealth that has been generated, not just in housing, but in the stock markets and other equities, that has an enormous, $90 trillion says it all.
And it does. And again, you're right. We haven't seen it really ever. You can go back to the Gilded Age, late part of the 1800s, but that's probably not a good place to go because we had some pretty bad recessions that occurred then as well. But yeah, I think that the run-up has not in isolation. It really, I would say, started lightly in the 70s. Oh, we could even go back to the end of World War II. But bottom line is that over time, assets appreciated, incomes have risen. Certainly the equity markets are, every day it seems to be that it's breaking a new record. That's a lot of money out there.
It sure is. And it looks like our state government wants a piece of that with their attempts on the wealth tax here. And obviously we now have our excise tax on equities. It's excluding real estate. So thankfully that got included as a carve out. But, what's the math? $250,000 sales or more in capital gains, you will pay 7% to the state.
Yes.
And if it's over $1 million, you will pay 9.9%.
Correct. Yeah, it is a lot. And mainly the reason for that is that we have a requirement in Washington State to have a balanced budget. You have to have it. And we have a massive budget deficit going on. Money's got to come from somewhere. You either cut services or you increase taxes. And that certainly is what the administration here in the state has to do. Not a case that they're doing it because they want to do it. They've got no choice. And so because we have that big shortfall in Olympia, and yeah, you've got to go somewhere. And so, yeah, that then comes into play as to how are people going to address it. And again, those deferral strategies that we've already talked about to, say, get around it. But again, it's that wealth preservation. Because I'm afraid that until we see a situation changing in Olympia, until we actually get into a budget surplus rather than deficit, these things are still going to be in place for quite some time.
Well, we've been the evergreen state, famously it's easier to make money and keep the money here, and these excise taxes don't help that argument, but they're still more favorable than California.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And again, so people are looking at where they want to spend their time in retirement, whether it be here in the US or overseas. Again, they're looking at different states. Where's a good place for me to be? Both from a climate standpoint, from a tax standpoint, from a lifestyle standpoint.
Yeah.
People still look at the Northwest as saying, I kind of like it up there.
It was tragic what happened in the LA fires, and obviously I'm not sure what is the future, given that some of those homes could not be replaced, given entitlements would be nearly impossible to rebuild over the water, for instance.
Billions and billions of dollars. Similar situation, actually. I just got back from Maui a couple of weeks ago. I was there for the 2-year anniversary of the fires that occurred there. Seeing a lot of parcels that, yes, they've been cleaned of debris, but they have not been rebuilt, certainly not close to the water, and it's taking 14, 16 months to get a permit. it's going to be very hard. And again, in California, same things applying there. We're not going to see everything be rebuilt. There's no question about it. But then what does get rebuilt? Well, what are insurance premiums going to be? People are just getting tired because of the climate change we're seeing, of fires, of floods, of landslides, of mudslides. Is it a place they want to be anymore?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly devastating, but one of the trends that we've seen are an inbound group of Californians that are choosing to rebuild their lives here just because of the weather pattern changes and taxation as well, and overall lifestyle. I mean, the Northwest is receiving some of that demand.
Oh, very much so. And I think, is that going to slow down? Well, it probably will, again, because of COVID. It kind of messed things up quite a lot. But that migration, rather than going from the center of America out to the coast, which is what we've always seen, now we're seeing it from the south to the north. Now, Texas, obviously, a bit of an exception in that respect, but we've seen a slowdown there, no doubt, in terms of in-migration. But yeah, I think that people are now looking at a number of the northern states as places they want to be. And from a finance, from a tech standpoint, from an employment standpoint, well, you can look at Seattle more than you will say look at Boise, Idaho.
Right.